Hey, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us online from all over the world. I'm so excited to welcome you to today's webinar on advancing platform engineering with Northflank and Civo. In today's rapidly evolving tech landscape, the ability to master platform engineering has become crucial for businesses, which is why we're here with two industry experts to dive into this a little bit deeper. Before I introduce them, I wanted to go over just a few quick housekeeping things. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, or you can reach out to hello@civo.com, and I'll make sure that that gets over to our speakers. Let me scroll here. Awesome. Outside of our virtual events and webinars, Civo hosts a series of in-person events all over the world. And our next one will be Civo Navigate North America in Austin, Texas, this February 20th and 21st. If this is something that you're interested in, we are offering a 50% off ticket to anyone that's joining us today. We'd love to see you there. Just scan that QR code and use code Civo Webinar for that 50% off code. Then moving on to our incredible speakers. First, we have Dinesh, the CTO at Civo, a cloud service provider that enables companies to host core applications with ease, helping speed up development, increase productivity, and reduce costs. Dinesh has a background ranging from working in data centers to cybersecurity, hosting, and more. I know Dinesh has a huge love for teaching others and sharing his passion for building products that seamlessly scale. Joining Dinesh is Will Stewart, the co-founder and CEO of Northflank, a self-service developer platform that automates and unifies deployment of any workload on any cloud at any scale. Will's expertise in DevOps and application development is sure to provide valuable insights into the intricacies of building robust and scalable platforms. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to the both of you. Let me stop sharing here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Dinesh,
No
that brings us onto our screen share.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess one of the first questions I had when we decided to put this talk together was what was a platform. I think you hear platform engineering a lot, but what it actually means depends on every person that I ask. So obviously, I went to the Oxford English Dictionary for a definitive guide of what a platform is, and it came up with a raised surface level or a raised level surface on which people or things can stand. And I immediately thought railway station. I guess that's not quite the platform we're going to be talking about today, though. Um, Strangely, though, you go down a few definitions on that, and it does come up with the IT definition, which is this standard for hardware of a computer system, which determines what kinds of software it can run. And I found there was a lot of parallels actually between the two of those, of a platform where you stand on, waiting for your train, supporting you and making sure you can get on the train and get to where you're going. And what we're doing with platforms in IT is that same sort of thing of building this platform where it enables people to develop software really, really quickly and get it out into production. So yeah, I think Will, do you kind of agree with that, or are you more on the train side of what a platform is?
Absolutely, I'm seeing the analogy. I see a platform as a vessel for delivering workloads that enables ultimately business value. Teams need to be able to deploy their workloads to a form of infrastructure that has been provisioned. And from a Civo perspective, a platform is delivering on that infrastructure, compute, network, storage. And from Northflank's perspective, a platform is delivering on the applications that then run on top of that infrastructure. So it's providing the right abstractions to teams to do their best work and deliver workloads, whether that be microservices, databases, or jobs, CDN, integrations with version control, and all of that good stuff. So totally on board with the analogy there.
I think that's quite interesting that you say about like a cloud platform and what Amazon and Google and what Civo are all doing and enabling these software delivery architectures, right? Of traditionally, that's what everyone has been using as the platform that underpins what they are doing and what they're delivering in IT. But I think we're seeing that definition of a platform evolve now to go beyond these sort of base services that cloud providers have traditionally done into that next level of enablement into an organization.
Exactly. It's about how do teams deliver managed services and have repeatable processes for delivering the software. rather than having shovels to build your railway, you've got sort of machinery and prefabricated parts to sort of deliver on your track faster.
I don't know how far we're going to take this analogy, but I'm loving it. I'm definitely loving it.
So I guess the next question is, well, what makes a platform? And I think one thing that is very clear in the recent couple of years is developers need self-service to really unlock productivity with an engineering organization. It's no good creating a ServiceNow ticket and waiting 3 months for your staging environment to be magically provisioned by someone in a completely different team. Application teams, platform teams, infrastructure teams need to work and deliver on the end goal together in parallel. And it needs to cater across those teams. People need to work together. Whether it's a founder like myself, I need to be involved in the release process. I want to see how the release is going. I need to be able to roll back if something's gone wrong. A PM in a team wants to have visibility on metrics and how services are performing. And a platform is a number of building blocks. It's not let's re-platform completely. It's building on what you already have. It's delivering on and connecting and integrating services together. So, for example, on the right-hand side, we have a diagram which is talking about the different mediums such as UI, API, GitOps, CLI. Those are the typical ways the different people in the organization will expect to interact with a platform. Often today, mostly it's just GitOps and just CLI, and people are looking at delivering on APIs and user interface for these platforms. And then some of the features that people are expecting, they need dev environments, they need preview environments, they need staging, they need prod, they need to deploy any database, whether it be Mongo, Redis, Postgres, ClickHouse, MinIO, or Materialize, or anything that is sort of up and coming and sort of demanding databases that they may not have existing workflows for deploying. A dev may sort of use Shadow IT and go and deploy Mongo somewhere, but teams are looking for ways to sort of have a way for devs to have a sort of a self experience. And then for apps, teams develop with tons of different languages. They don't just deploy with one language. They don't just do Node.js. They may have a microservice written in Erlang, Rust, Golang, and teams need to be able to deploy that, including Java Spring Boot or .NET on the enterprise. And then we build that down into sort of feature capabilities, CI/CD, disaster recovery, which then will all sit on top of an existing infrastructure platform, which Dinesh, you have a lot more context on than myself, but often to Northflank, it's a Kubernetes API. We interface with the Kubernetes API and integrate with third-party solutions like Fastly, GitHub, Cloudflare, GitLab, and that's a very common pattern across a number of teams. And then Kubernetes is making the infrastructure platform a sort of an abstracted layer, and maybe you could talk quickly about sort of the component parts underneath Kubernetes.
Yeah, I mean, I think this diagram, really a really good diagram of what all of the things that make up a platform or can make up a platform. And, really, really interesting to see all of the varieties and variations that you can choose when you build a platform. I know, Kubernetes does a really, really good job of abstracting some of that away and allowing the common interface across lots of applications to build a platform, right? Because Mongo, Redis, Postgres, they all deploy on top of Kubernetes. And that's really, I think, over the last few years allowed us to do this next level of platform development and creating these internal platforms that people can use to develop business value and allow developers to choose what of the varieties that are out there really, really quickly. And I think that self-service management platform is becoming really, really important. And you're right that CLI GitOps has been the traditional way that this has always been done, but the ability to do it almost ClickOps style or with an API and having things reflected back into GitOps becomes really, really powerful. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking for in a platform today.
Absolutely, and it's about increasing the accessibility of these tools. Sometimes it's this very complex workload that's sat on someone's machine that only Bob knows how to access. But now with more UIs and APIs, we're sort of enabling accessibility of this complex technology and sort of allowing more workloads to be deployed to production sooner. And ultimately, that's what businesses want. That's what platform engineering teams want. They want to reduce the stress level and also increase the amount of capability they can deliver.
Yeah, and then one of the things that we always hear about these things is, platforms failing. And in our experience, we were talking about this earlier about what are the key things, and normally it's users. Sort of you build this laundromat, it's really quite clear what you should be doing, and you will get that user that will throw themselves into that. And having a platform that has got a good set of guardrails around it and that really considers the developers that are going to be using it is one of the key areas to success, of not building what you as a technical team want to do, but building something that will get adoption, is really, really key.
Exactly. And I think adoption and developer experience come hand in hand. If you deliver a platform where hundreds of engineers are writing YAML all day, you're not going to get much adoption. You sort of need to have that, developer flair that a lot of up and coming developer tools have. But because everyone is DIYing, people expect that level of polish and capability out of the box. And definitely if you're sort of building everything from scratch and it takes 3 years to build this long delivery of features, you may have missed a lot of capability that developers were expecting. They don't use the capability, and then you've got a very expensive platform that no one's using. And I think that's one of the key things about making it easy to use, drive consumption, drive usage, and then you'll have a successful platform on your hands. But if you do the opposite, you have a platform that has failed.
It definitely feels like the DevOps kind of ethos and culture that we've put up there about when you're developing a platform, that you need to be getting it out into the hands of your internal developers, getting their feedback, making a change, getting it out into into production, as in your platform into production, and then getting feedback again is really, really key. And I think that's why I wanted to put the DevOps infinity loop in there, because DevOps is less about, in my mind, delivering things, but a cultural change in an organization. And I think it still applies to platforms and platform engineering.
Absolutely. And that feedback loop is really important for sort of team and tooling chain. Like some of your team will move on, they'll move to a different team. People maintaining the platform will change. And it's the same with tools. Tools come and go. CNI, CSI drivers, they come and go. Different tools become deprecated. Your platform also has essentially do the concept of managed deprecation. Throughout time, you're going to change service mesh, and your platform has to evolve and listen to feedback and sort of stay up to date. I think back to when Northflank originally was built on top of Mesos. Mesos was the hot thing. Everyone was wanting to use Mesos, and then one day suddenly Kubernetes sort of stole the crown, and then suddenly we've got a re-platform on Mesos to Kubernetes. So your platform has to be able to adapt and sort of adapt or die, which is obviously not what you want. Brilliant.
Yeah, I guess we really want to get into a demo. I think the story that we want to tell in this demo is something that hopefully a lot of people can understand. So Will has done a lot of great work and set up this demo environment where we've got a production deployment already, which is a web service backed by Redis and a migration job that loads data into that. I'm going to show a sort of workflow that hopefully a lot of people are familiar with, which is a PR workflow that deploys straight into production. But we're going to change that with the Northflank platform into creating this feature environment where we can test these changes and view these changes before they go directly to prod. Remembering my days of FTPing directly onto a web server and making changes, I think this is a very similar thing of using your GitOps pipeline to deploy directly into production without any staging environment or ephemeral test environments. So, yeah.
Absolutely, Dinesh. And what's the most exciting thing about this is all running on Civo. So the project that we've deployed here is running directly on Civo Kubernetes cluster, which of course took under 3 minutes to deploy, which is obviously fantastic and is great for our end-to-end testing. And we've got a cluster running in London, 1.26 Kubernetes. It's got 3 nodes running, and we have then provisioned a project called Demo, which is running a pipeline. We've got a production environment that, as Dinesh covered, has got a web service, a job, and an add-on, which is running Redis for persistence. And I can come across here to this repository, When I make a change to the repository, it's going to do a build and deploy using a Northflank release flow. And I guess we'll get straight into it. So I'm going to make an update here. I'm just going to load the web UI. As we can see here, we've got a Node.js app. It's bringing the top 10 films from IMDb. And I'm going to head over to the Git repository, the app, and then I'm going to make a change to the server file. And we can see that the title Node.js Redis on Northflank is here. And I'm going to run a change, hello world, very creative. And I'm going to push, as everyone does, straight to master. And then in the Northflank platform, that's going to pick up the commit. There's been a commit to the branch. And we can see here it's going to trigger this release flow. So when it will start a Docker build, which is running in Canico, an open source build engine that you can run in your Kubernetes clusters. Then when that is being built, it's then going to run a release to the job. The job will then trigger, run the migration. When the migration is complete, we'll then deploy the build to the microservice, and then the release will be complete. Now, the Docker build can take about 30 seconds, so we do have to wait a little bit for that to complete. And then we're getting real-time feedback. This is about a user interface, and then we'll come on to sort of the infrastructure as code piece as well, which I can show in this tab here. We've got a workflow builder where we can see we're doing a build node, and then very shortly the build will be complete. The build is now complete. We've done a release of the job. A job migration has been triggered. I'm going to be able to click this link, and we'll see that a cron job is spawned. And in a number of seconds, we'll get logs coming from our Civo cluster. And we can see that we've run a Node.js container. We've run the migration. The migration is completed. And very soon, we'll have a deployment to our microservice running.
Even though we're deploying directly to main and to prod, what I really like about this is that you still get that sort of UI where you can view logs from the job, and you've got that history of what has been going on with all of the workflows and things. So, even if you do go with this and you're deploying directly on main with no reviews or anything, I think Northflank gives you so much more visibility in a way that developers that aren't day-to-day inside kubectl just gives you so much visibility on it.
Exactly, and no one's going to YOLO their workload straight to master. For the purpose of the demo, we're pushing a commit to master, and then we're going to introduce a preview system where we're merging into master, absolutely. And then that deployment is now complete. So I'm going to be able to refresh here, and we can see we've added the hello world. So we've got a full end-to-end pipeline, CI/CD for a Docker-based workflow, any container, following the same principle. So as Dinesh alluded to, we shouldn't be doing that. So for example, now we're going to create a preview environment. We're going to create a feature branch, which adds a feature. We'll create a preview environment. It will spin up ephemeral workloads on the Civo cluster, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to just show you how we configured that. So on PR creation, we're going to start a Docker build. We're going to create an ephemeral Redis instance, and you can see when we've done the variable substitution, that's where the essentially the PR ID will form. We'll then create a secret group to take the secret artifacts from the database, which will be the Redis connection string, and we can then pipe that straight into the web and the web microservice and the migration. And when the database is healthy, it's going to run the migration, and then it will deploy to the container. So I will now head over to Git. I will now create a pull request as quickly as possible. Commit the change, create a new branch. And as soon as this PR is created, we're going to spin up our I've not actually created the pull request.
You've
yet.
not created. I was going to say.
There we go.
You missed a step.
So I've now created the pull request. I then head over to Northflank, and we'll see that a preview environment called Silly Quilt, that's a great name, randomly generated, has now been triggered. So in the background, we're going to create Redis because my preview environment needs Redis. Redis needs to be created first, and then I will have a better view on this UI. So we've seen that we're doing a Docker build. We've got a sort of dependency on a Docker build, which we need for our preview because we just pushed. And then over a period of 30 seconds, we'll then be able to proceed to the next stage, which is create my secrets, create my microservice, create my migration, because this is all needed ephemerally. So when my PR shuts down, all of this will be deleted. There will be no leftover artifacts of this preview. So then I can keep spinning up and creating new projects on my Civo cluster.
I'm guessing with Northflank, you showed me this earlier, that there's the ability to create this environment either through the UI. There's a drag and drop interface of dropping things like Redis in, or you can use the code from production to start as a base for this, and you can kind of load it in, and it all gets driven back into a GitOps style framework, right?
Exactly. So earlier we were looking at production where we had one instance of the microservice running. And I can head over to my settings on that release flow, and I can say I've got enabled GitOps enabled. And we've also seen that config as code that we looked at earlier. So I'm actually going to now make a change to the number of replicas. So I've got, I just get to the right place. I've got one instance of my microservice. I'm now going to change that to 2. I'm just going to make sure I'm on the updated version. 2 replicas of my deployment service. I'm going to make that change, and I'm going to push directly to master, as you do. And now in Northflank, I'm going to be able to then see that change was actually applied to the template. So if I come over here and go to my Civo production, I can then go to the visual editor and click on the prod web, and we can see here the instances has actually been scaled up to 2. And the next time the template is run, I'm going to be able to then see that the instance has been scaled. It's not actually, I don't have it on automatically run, so I need to run the template manually. But now after that, it's going to scale the number of replicas to 2. As we can see, it's now scaled up immediately. It's created 2 new replicas, and when those are healthy, the old replica is going to scale down. And that takes
I guess
a second.
It's slightly different config. There's the JSON there, but it feels a very familiar GitOps workflow with something like Terraform, where you're making a change of 1 to 2 replicas, and you can go through a PR process. But you've got the nice thing of having it mirrored in the UI straight away as well.
Exactly. It's all about this real-time interface that some of the team are going to prefer a ClickOps UI approach. Some of the sort of hardcore platform engineers are going to love the JSON experience. Some teams don't want to use YAML, some want to use JSON. And yes, exactly. It's trying to be familiar, but also bring the increased developer experience where relevant. Absolutely. So that preview environment we started to set up earlier is now fully running. And if I head over to this service, I can now view it, and we've got PR hello. So we've got this preview environment for the PR. And I'm now going to be doing what we all want to do, which is now merge the PR, get it over with. We want to sort of spin down the infrastructure. We don't want lots of staging environments running. We want to keep our costs optimized. I can now head over to the pull requests, merge the pull request. That's merged. Northflank immediately is going to pick up that is happening. And we can see that the preview environment has now got, it doesn't exist anymore, which is what we want. And we can see that we've merged into the master branch. Therefore, production is now going through the release process, and we've essentially now released PR hello to the world, and that's going to take 45 seconds from here to complete, which we're waiting on now.
I think for the purpose of this demo as well, we've had the preview environment launch into the same Civo cluster that we had previously, but we can use Civo and the fast cluster launchers for your preview environments to actually be in its own dedicated cluster, so that you're not having that risk potentially of some dodgy code in a feature environment, or from a security point of view that you've got features with untested code running in the same cluster as production. So for the purpose of this demo, we've done it in the same, but Civo allows you to spin those clusters up within 90 seconds and then deploy your preview environment.
Exactly, and it's as simple as bringing in your Civo API key. So I can select Civo from the list of providers. I choose my credentials. I give it a howdy beef. That's a random name. Happy days. I can then select a region. So all of Civo's regions, even the XMith region with the GPU support, you can now also deploy into London, New York, Phoenix, and Frankfurt. For the purpose of this, I'm just again going to choose London. I can choose the Kubernetes version, and then immediately all of Civo's instances are available, and you can get very custom with sort of what workloads you want to run. If you've got a dev cluster, you could have sort of a standard instance. If you've got a production cluster, you could have many performance optimized. So for example, the cluster we're deploying into currently has 3 performance optimized VMs running in Civo's Kubernetes. It's as simple as that. And how I target that is through a project. I choose my cluster. So if I was to create a new project, I'm now deploying another project to this existing cluster, but I could create another cluster and select it that way. Yeah, so if I
hopefully that means that that production release is now live, is it?
Exactly, which I'm going to head there now. There we go. PR hello. So we've deployed hello to production, and that's pretty much the CI/CD workflow for taking code from Git, creating a preview environment, merging in the preview environment, releasing to production. Obviously, for most teams, there'll be a dev and staging environment likely before using the code straight to prod. But no, this was a way to demonstrate the workflow.
I think one of the other things we were talking about in what a platform is about having sort of almost like templates or applications and that you can bring into an environment, right? So if someone, for example, in the dev team was using Supabase, there are templates and things where we can create that either in advance and get that all tested and then have that available for developers to use, right?
Absolutely, and we don't have to run through the whole thing, but we can just visually go through some of the component parts of repeatability. Teams need to be able to define complex templates that some of their engineering teams can use, whether it's .NET or Spring Boot or whatever it is. Teams have got some repeatability that they need to deploy, and one of those sort of on the cutting edge of developer experiences. Teams want to use Supabase. Well, not all teams, but a lot of teams are wanting to run Supabase. And I thought it was quite a sort of a good way to sort of compare the complexity of we've got to DIY deliver a complex Helm chart, or can we build a platform to create a reusable process for an engineer to self-serve it? And this Supabase template has a number of components. There's a lot of dependencies. I need to deploy Minnow, I need to deploy Postgres, I need to deploy microservices, and then deploy them with Docker containers. Funnily enough, that sounds very much like a platform and engineering problem, and we can solve deploying Supabase in your own cloud account and deploying Supabase through Northflank on Civo in a one-click experience through sort of this template builder, sort of a parallel and sequential flow builder as well. So we can see, as I said, Minnow, Postgres, but we're also deploying things like Kong. People need network security, they need to be able to control endpoints, and one of the ways is to deliver that through service mesh or deploy it through containers like Kong. Yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of different component parts with Supabase. But I think we're we're coming to the end of the demo, so I won't go through and deploy that live, but we can see that all of this UI is then distilled down to a spec that people will be very familiar with. It is different, but it feels familiar to a sort of a Kubernetes CRD. It just happens to be in JSON, and it happens to be in a more accessible format and very focused on the workload, not the infrastructure, because ultimately Kubernetes and Civo have abstracted away the infrastructure problem, and Northflank is just plugging into that and deploying the workloads that end users need. So I guess that sort of concludes the demo.
I think it's worth noting, when we go back to the slides, we've put the links to the repos. So there's the web app repo that we've been committing code to. That's that second link down there. And then the top repo there is the GitOps one of that orchestration and that almost like more Terraform IAC task there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and feel free to play around. I think we have a free tier, and Civo, there's at the end of the slides, there's a code that you can use, and you can get a pretty comprehensive cluster running on both Northflank and Civo and deploy this workload, and play around. Give us your feedback.
The future of platform engineering. I think we had a lot of fun making this earlier because when we're talking about platform engineering, my thought is that it's the new thing of doing DevOps, but it's the same thing as always. And the more we spoke about it, it was like, DevOps was the same thing as SRE, and it was the same thing as the systems administrator. Of like, these are always the same things that are just repeating itself. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think
the future. And then we had to build the meme. And then we realized that the product that we were using to build the meme was a platform in itself. So we also had to double check if we had it in the right order, if it should actually be platform engineering on the left and systems admin on the right. But I think we nailed it in the end.
I hope so. But I'm sure the comments will tell us if we weren't right. But I think for me, the future of platform engineering, it's really that next level of abstraction. We've had cloud providers providing a level of abstraction over virtual machines, Kubernetes providing that level of abstraction over on top of containers. Platform, I think, is now creating that level of abstraction on top of services and applications that are allowing businesses to deliver value so much faster.
Absolutely. I think that's the key understanding, which a lot of platform leaders are coming to today. Is it's all well and good having lots of complex logic, DIY, creating the best platforms. If it's not delivering ultimate value, then who's winning? So I think there's going to be a further drive for automation, more making things more accessible for engineering teams. Ultimately, everyone wants to build a successful platform, and the way to do that is to have interfaces that developers are used to consuming and want to consume, and also the scope of what workloads are deploying. I think there's also a number of security challenges. How do you make something self-service and drive developer experience, but also make things more secure? When SOC compliance, HIPAA, all of these things for large organizations are incredibly important. And how do you bring sort of a platform approach into an on-prem environment? How do you do it in a hybrid cloud environment? When running things on Civo is very simple. Other organizations have multiple clouds. They use Civo, and they also have their own infrastructure. Balancing that complexity is going to become ever more challenging. And also, I think teams will be smaller. People will have to do more with less. And there will be ever-growing demands. I need integrations with X, Y, and Z code. I need to work with this external platform. We saw earlier integrations with Cloudflare and Fastly, NS1. There's always going to be an ever-growing requirements list for a platform. So I think more automation, more building blocks that can integrate together is essential.
I think when I'm having conversations with organizations about platform engineering, is that they're realizing that throughout the organization, the same problem has been solved 5 or 6 times, but just slightly differently by the teams that are actually developing it. So, if it is this integration with Civo Kubernetes, is you really as a business, you only want to engineer that once and then have it as a capability that you can give to the rest of the departments. So, that they want to go for a Kubernetes cluster, here it is with Civo and off we go. But it's an abstraction of beyond that and saying, I want Redis. And this is the little like catalog where I can drag and drop Redis, and it goes, right, you're in production, therefore you're getting replication, you're getting backups out of the box, and you don't need to do any of that tooling and configuration.
Absolutely, and we see that across a number of our add-on services in production. So users wanted Postgres, then they want zonal Postgres, they want high availability Postgres, they need point-in-time recovery, they need, the list is ever growing, but ultimately a platform like Northflank can deliver on those feature sets and then provide the capability out of the box for, horizontally thousands of companies, rather than each of one of those companies currently building those blocks on their own, which is unfortunately and luckily for Northflank something that's happening. And then our platform can come in and help simplify and provide that broad spectrum capability across not just Postgres, but Redis, MinIO, MySQL, and every other database in the future. But that sort of feature set requirements also applies to microservices. Sort of, I need one-click zonal redundancy or regional redundancy on my API. There's every company has to build that currently. So maybe there's space for platforms like Northflank and Civo to say, well, actually, there's something more readily available that you can use out of the box.
It's just something that came to my mind as well, is that it's very, very hard to get right, because I know Cloudflare, not picking on them at all, but they're really, really open when they have outages. And there was one that happened about 6 months ago, where one of their data centers went offline, and they realized that they had built this platform internally where they could have an application deployed across multiple data centers and fully redundant, but some of their key applications were just deployed in this single environment and the single data center, and they had a prolonged outage because they didn't manage to get the right adoption, so that developers were deploying their production applications tagged with production to get multi-region support. So, this is a really complicated problem that a lot of companies are facing at the moment.
Exactly, and I think you touched on the point earlier. Think about workloads, not infrastructure. The average application engineer is not thinking, I need a Kubernetes cluster with zonal redundancy, and I need an etcd cluster here, and I need Vault deployed here with secrets. They're thinking, I just need Node.js deployed to production, and I needed it yesterday. And if we're thinking about it in an infrastructure sense, there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of overhead, whereas if you think about workloads and apps, you can actually start slicing up a larger infrastructure piece, and it reduces costs. It focuses on delivering the ultimate value, which is I need to ship my workloads because we need to create a new product line to deliver on our revenue. And I think from a startup's perspective, that's what all startups are having to think about more, is how do we make things more efficient? How do we deliver those values? I think thinking about the whole concept in workloads and not infrastructure is really important.
I think it's really powerful. If once you can say this is what production means for us for a Node.js application, and having a template that you can go, cool, you've tagged it as production, therefore you suddenly get zonal replication and redundancy and everything, and not asking developers to think about that.
Exactly, and quite a lot of devs don't want to think about that. They 100% can learn and do learn and deliver on those values, but it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of time being on PagerDuty and having to fix some of those issues. And when a new Kubernetes version comes out or a new Postgres version comes out, running custom Helm charts is a huge burden on a lot of people. So I think it's also trying to de-stress a lot of people's working methodology. Brilliant.
So yeah, I think just wanted to touch on the last few things here. I think we are getting close to time as well. But one of the things about Civo is the speed of enabling you to get applications up, and I think combined with Northflank as well, and some of the templates is a really, really powerful ability that we've a capability that we've got together.
Exactly, and also that our marketplaces. So Northflank has a stack templates, and Civo has a marketplace of sort of one-click open source capabilities. With those sorts of pick and mix, like a sweetie store, right? You can out of the box, you can get going really quickly, and I think that's really important to sort of try things and then sort of build on top of that. You can build your own custom powerful templates on both platforms, and I think that's incredibly important. You've got the UI, you've got the templates, you've got the GitOps, and that's what people need, and that's what we hear from customers is they need that power and flexibility, but they also want the developer experience. And I think a lot of people are saying Kubernetes it's won the orchestrator war, right? And sort of, you know, next gen Kubernetes development is it's getting a little bit more boring now. The release schedules are slowing down. Cloud providers are caught up. Everyone's now in this cadence of, you know, frequent but less frequent releases. Feature development isn't as exciting, but that means that it's reached sort of the masses. It's the default way to deploy on your own infrastructure or in your own cloud account. And now the question is, how do we take away the toil of actually operating Kubernetes? How do we deliver those workloads? And I think Civo and Northflank are doing a lot of that work, and paired together, it's even more effective.
I've just got this image of going to the pick and mix store, getting some candies, then going to the train station, jumping on the Civo Northflank train, and you're off to the races. So yeah, bring it full circle back to that image at the start.
Absolutely, makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. So I guess we're on to questions. I think you guys had some great analogies and love the handmade meme. I guess I have about 4 questions here. So I'm just going to throw them out, and then whoever would like to take them, please feel free. The first one we have is, how do you manage auto-scaling GPUs for different environments on MLOps workflows?
So one of the ways that we've seen customers do this is create different node pools with GPU types added to them, but scale them down to 0. So that your Kubernetes cluster is aware of the different types of GPUs that are there, but you're not actually spending resources on them. And then installing cluster autoscaler so that when workload starts up that requires a certain type of GPU, it's able to get scheduled to a node pool that doesn't have any workload, and autoscaler will add it, allow the GPU workload to run, and then at the end of it, autoscaler will scale the workload down and shut down the node as well. So a really clean and automated way of scaling up and down GPU workload while remaining cost effective.
We've also seen on our side, we've recently been adding GPU support to Northflank as well. So you can, in the future, run GPU workloads on Northflank on Civo as well. Is this requirement for sort of MIG and time slicing to have cost efficiency? You can run n number of pods on a single GPU with time slicing, and with MIG you can actually subdivide up a whole GPU to securely operate sort of an eighth of a GPU and have 8 in unique GPUs per GPU. So time slicing is a godsend for a lot of people to have lots of different diverse GPU workloads running on maybe 1 or 2 GPUs, rather than having to spin up 16 when there may not be any availability, or it may be pushing the budget too far. So I think sort of making time slicing and MIG more accessible is quite important as well.
Perfect, thank you. Next question I have is, how do you balance exposing the right abstraction layer to developers? How much is too much access to the underlying Kubernetes?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question, and something that Northflank, you know, we've not necessarily struggled with, but had to ponder quite a lot, because you're trying to balance the developer experience and providing sort of the sandbox that is Kubernetes. Ultimately, you have to expose as much as you can, otherwise the platform becomes compromised and people have the hierarchy graduation problem. If it's not powerful enough, they migrate off, they build out their own platform and DIY everything. So from a Northflank perspective, our job is to provide as many capabilities as possible within that developer experience. I think one of the big challenges is security. You go to any large organization, you talk about self-service, they're like, great, we want it. But can you turn this, and this, and this, and this off? Because we don't want people doing this. So it's based on the organization. We're finding that they want to have security policies to say engineers can't deploy latest, they can't do this, they can't do this. Sort of, let's have the platform, but let's have controls over what they can't do. And then it's up to the organization sort of where that balance lies.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for organizations and platform teams to actually understand what production means, what staging means, and what like the ephemeral feature environment means. Because once you've done that and able to develop that actually production is this to your developers, they shouldn't need that Kubernetes access because they should be caring about their application and having it tagged as production and knowing that it's always up, rather than having to dig into Kubernetes itself and going with that. We really want to be working with platforms to abstract that all away, where they're not asking for access because they don't need access because the platform is doing all of that for them. But that's not an easy challenge. It's something where I think we really need to get to and keep working towards.
Awesome. Thank you. This next one you kind of touched on, but would love to dive deeper with it. How important is security when building a platform, and what should early adopters consider when building their platform?
One thing from Northflank's perspective is that we've always thought about multi-tenancy from day one. We have a sort of a self-service, just add your card, sign up, deploy workloads. So we have to deal with random people's untrusted code. So there's a number of approaches we've taken to build multi-tenancy into Kubernetes. And I sort of see multi-tenancy and security as in lockstep, basically lockstep. There are things like gvisor, Kata containers, Cilium, for network security, and Istio service mesh, Linkerd, all of these sort of security primitives, you can actually start building into your platform to actually start delivering on those security concerns so that you can provide a multi-tenant experience. And for a large enterprise with 5,000 engineers, that's what you're providing. You're providing a platform, a multi-tenant platform to your 5,000 engineers. There could be hundreds of diverse teams in there. And you've got to see every single separate team as a tenant within your platform. So you've got to be building using some of the technology I just mentioned from day one, and you've got to be constructing your clusters with that consideration.
Awesome. Any other thoughts, Dinesh? Or are you okay with me moving on to the next one?
No, you can get the next one. I think it's a really good answer.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, kind of already touched on everything, but should we only use one platform for engineering within a company, or should we build a platform engineering by business units?
Well, so from a cost and simplification perspective, there is an argument versus central IT and organizations having sort of dispersed control. I think a lot of the issue that we've had is that shadow IT exists because of application teams and business units wanting to do something and central IT saying no. The whole point of delivering a self-service developer experience through central IT is central IT is happy because they're in control of the underlying infrastructure and the rules. And then end business units and application teams are even more happy because they get to immediately self-serve and get what they need without having to wait. So I think it's sort of an answer that says, well, I'm understanding what you're sort of the question you're trying to ask, and ultimately the answer is a self-service developer platform solves a lot of those challenges.
I think it's a real cultural thing as well. Kind of going back to what DevOps was trying to do about this, changing the way the organization takes responsibility for deployments of, bringing in platform engineering and a platform for business unit is not going to solve all of your problems. It's just going to create more complexity, and it's going to obfuscate more of where the problems are. So you want to be trying to bring in a single platform that everyone's using, and trying to cover that self-service aspect for it, because that is going to bring teams together to have that shared responsibility, shared ownership, shared love for the single platform of the product that you are developing and you're getting out to customers. So I would definitely more urge on the single platform for an entire organization because of that bringing people together and having a more cohesive organization.
Perfect. Thank you. So that's all my questions for today. I really appreciate both of you joining us. If anybody has any additional questions after the webinar, please feel free to reach out to either team and we'll be happy to help. Again, this is just a quick reminder of Civo Navigate. If you are interested, please feel free to use that code or again, reach out to us and we'd be happy to help. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and we will talk with you.